Every morning for 3 years, he left a handful of food on the porch. Not for a pet, not for a neighbor, but for a raven, a black-feathered, sharp-eyed bird that came from the woods, silent and hungry. People called him strange. "Why feed a wild bird?" they said. "It owes you nothing." But he kept doing it, every single morning, until one bitter winter day, when the snow was deep and the forest silent, that same raven did something no one expected. It saved his life. This is the true story of how kindness to a wild animal came full circle in the most incredible way. His name is Daniel. A quiet man in his early 60s, he lived alone in a wooden cabin at the edge of a forest in northern Canada. Daniel had moved there after retiring from his job as a mechanic. City life didn't suit him anymore. He preferred the sound of wind through trees over traffic. His wife had passed years ago, and his only daughter lived halfway across the country. Most days were spent in silence, reading books, chopping wood, drinking coffee, and watching the changing seasons. Then, one cold November morning, everything changed. He noticed a raven sitting on a tree stump not far from his porch. It was thin. Its wings looked uneven. It didn't fly away when he stepped outside. Instead, it just stared. Daniel went inside, broke a piece of bread, and tossed it onto the snow. The raven tilted its head, walked over, and took the food. Then it flew away. The next morning, the bird came back, and again the next day, and again. That was the start of something Daniel didn't expect. A routine, a silent friendship, a reason to look forward to mornings. Over time, the bird grew bolder. It would land closer to the porch. It would wait quietly, sometimes hopping instead of flying. Daniel started calling it Shadow. Its feathers were so dark they seemed to absorb light. Shadow never made a sound, just watched, waited, ate. One morning, Daniel placed food in his hand and held it out. Shadow didn't move at first. Then, carefully, it stepped forward and plucked the bread from his palm. That was the moment the trust became real. The routine continued. Every morning, Daniel would make coffee, step outside, and find Shadow already there, perched on the railing, waiting. Sometimes, Shadow would bring small objects, a shiny button, a piece of wire, once, even a lost key. Little gifts left on the porch. "Is this your way of saying thanks?" Daniel would chuckle. Their connection wasn't loud. It wasn't like a pet. It was something more ancient. A silent respect between two solitary beings. Winter turned to spring, then summer. The years passed. Shadow never missed a day. Neither did Daniel. It was the third winter of their friendship. Snow had fallen heavy the night before. Daniel decided to go out early, before sunrise, to gather firewood from deeper in the forest. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't carry a phone, just an axe, a sled, and a thermos of coffee. But deep in the woods, as he stepped over a fallen log, his foot slipped. A sharp crack. Pain shot through his leg. He collapsed. His ankle was broken. He tried to stand. Couldn't. He was miles from his cabin. No one knew where he was. The cold was creeping in fast. Then he heard it. A familiar flutter of wings. A sharp caw. Shadow. The raven circled above, crying out. Daniel waved weakly, barely conscious. Shadow flew off, then returned. Again and again. Hours passed. Daniel drifted in and out of consciousness. Then, distant voices, cracking branches, footsteps, a rescue team. "We followed the raven," one of them said. It kept circling and crying. It led us here. Daniel was stunned. Shadow had gone for help. A bird he fed out of kindness had repaid him with his life. Daniel recovered in the hospital with a cast on his leg and a smile on his face. Not many people could say they were saved by a wild raven. The rescue team told the story again and again. "The bird wouldn't leave us alone," one of them said. "It kept flying in circles until we followed it." Local news picked up the story. Some people didn't believe it. But Daniel knew the truth. When he returned home weeks later, Shadow was waiting on the porch. Same place, same time. Daniel never missed a morning again. He even set up a little perch with food and fresh water, no matter the season. "You're not just a bird," he said one morning. "You're a friend." The bond between them remained, quiet and steady. Some mornings, Daniel would speak softly, about life, about grief, about gratitude. Shadow never replied, but sometimes, just sometimes, it would caw once, like it understood. Daniel lived many more years in that cabin, and Shadow, as far as anyone could tell, kept coming. Maybe it wasn't just about food anymore. Maybe it never was. Kindness doesn't always come back the way we expect. Sometimes it flies in on wings. Sometimes it waits for the right moment, years later, to return the favor. This story reminds us of the quiet power of compassion, of what can grow between two living beings, even when no words are spoken. So next time you see a hungry animal or someone in need, remember Daniel and Shadow, a man who gave without asking, and a raven who never forgot.